Mike Pence has now been chosen officially as Trump's VP. The Republican governor of Indiana was set to be announced today, and then it wasn't supposed to happen, and then it ended up happening, and the entire situation, the entire path to him becoming the VP has been a mess, although Trump promised us that he would end that sort of thing in Washington. So yesterday he said, in light of the horrible attack in Nice, France, I have postponed tomorrow's news conference concerning my vice presidential announcement. So that's the reason he says he postponed it. But we're going to examine the evidence and see if that's actually why he postponed it, or if he was just using a terror attack to cover up for his own indecision. So Trump had been scheduled to unveil his pick at an 11 a.m. news conference at a hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Sources tell NBC News, though, that Donald Trump was watching news coverage from his Beverly Hills home Thursday and was described as surprised and irritated that news organizations were identifying Pence as his choice early in the day.
By the way,
Trump,
I just think it's great that you can be at your, first of all, he lives in New York. He has a Beverly Hills home. I mean, this is
Why is he in Beverly Hills?
Because it's awesome here. So he's in Beverly Hills watching news coverage, and he's supposed to be in Midtown Manhattan at 11. It's no big deal because you're on your own plane.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, abstractly, pretty great life. I wouldn't screw it up by running for president.
Would you take that hair for it, though? That's the trade-off.
You know,
you appreciate hair.
right. That's I had a haircut yesterday, and I instantly regretted it. It's like giving up a bunch of little friends.
It is.
Yeah.
Can I just say this? Two things I like to say quickly about Mike Pence.
Yeah, go quickly.
People are like, "Who is Mike Pence?" Mike Pence is that 2024 Jeopardy question that's going to cost somebody a lot of money. And people are, I mean, Trump already. Mike Pence, Trump has the white vote, and Pence is there to help shore up the really white vote.
Exactly, super white.
Super white.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he says that Nice was happening, and that's why he was postponing it. Also, he was pissed off that the media was talking about it, so he's losing control of the situation. Then it turns out that the situation's a little bit different than he even thought it was, because, and this was from yesterday, Trump will perhaps have to decide on Pence by noon Friday, they said, the deadline for the first-term governor to appear on the state November ballot as either a gubernatorial or vice presidential candidate. So he's initially apparently going to pick Pence. Then he gets pissed off that they're all talking about it. Then he says because of the terror attack, he's going to postpone it. Then he apparently finds out he can't postpone it because then Pence, if he's not picked, won't be able to run again as governor.
The only thing that I disagree with in this, everybody knew about that deadline. That deadline was out there. So I don't think that even Trump, that couldn't have come as news, certainly to Paul Manafort and others who knew what Pence was up against. What I think happened is that
everybody
Trump
also knew what a ground game was, and Trump wasn't deprived of that until like 10 elections in.
I think what Trump didn't like, what bothered Trump was that he didn't mind. It wasn't that the news coverage leaked the story. It's that he saw how incredibly unenthusiastic the story was. Is that he saw, what did I do with this? He got an instant little reaction of, because the coverage, I was fascinated last night because this does not happen very often. Politico runs a story suggesting that Trump might pick Pence. It might not be Pence. There's indecision. I watched the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley, which I TiVo every night, like none of you.
Oh, no. Pelley? I love Pelley.
I have now heard of that show once.
They do the most, it's the newsiest of this.
They are.
And
probably a good thing.
And they ran two stories about, it looks like, they ran two stories as Donald Trump has selected Mike Pence to be the vice president of the United States, and he'll be on the Republican ticket, and here's a story about the decision, and here's a story getting to know Mike Pence. And then Politico's like, maybe he hasn't picked Pence, and I'm like, and CNN ran a story that said on Thursday that it wasn't just that Trump had made this decision, he called Mike Pence and said, I'd like you to run with me. And Pence said, yes. That was CNN's actual wording. So clearly something went on because different news sources were hearing different things. And do you have the Dana Bash tweet from today?
I do, actually.
All right, get to that.
Yeah, well, okay, if you are like second-guessing Pence because he didn't generate the excitement that everyone else thought he would, then you're a mess. Because how could you possibly think that anyone would want to vote for you if only a bit more Pence was added into the recipe? If you didn't think that Trump was anti-woman enough, if he hasn't been outspoken against gays enough, well, now we got Pence for you. If Trump wasn't unsure enough about climate change, now we got Pence for you. Nobody thought that would excite the nation, that would set fire to the youth vote, except perhaps Donald Trump.
Really?
But, and we're gonna show you some video, including last night, where he still seemed unsure. Dana Bash tweeted this earlier. Scoop, real Donald Trump was so unsure about Mike Pence that around midnight last night he asked top aides if he could get out of it.
Unbelievable, this guy.
This is the steamroller who doesn't, he's not controlled by other people. He's like, please don't make me
He was
pick
also
Pence.
clearly upset that he had, I may have misspoken, or I didn't misspeak.
You just misspoke when
I
you
just
said.
misspoke when I said
This
it.
is like
Double
the
misspoke.
Irony.
Oh my God! I'm inside of a quagmire, inside of an enigma.
That's racist.
It's a riddle.
Wasn't Quagmire racist? Didn't somebody?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Somebody called Obama
Yeah, or tar baby.
a tar baby.
That
He
is-
said he-
that's
said,
racist.
said he meant Quagmire.
Quagmire.
So great.
You don't call a person a
Republicans
quagmire.
are great. Apparently, he was also upset. I think he was clearly upset by the lack of enthusiasm that Pence received. But he also had not yet told Newt Gingrich or Chris Christie of his final decision.
They had a tense conversation yesterday.
Right, there were reports
where
of
he
a
wasn't
tense conversation, and if it's reported as tense, it must have been really tense with Chris Christie.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris Christie. Oh, you know, he's just sitting there with a bag of chips and a tub of
Chips.
chips.
Oh,
Oh man, he's got a bag of chips and a tub of chips, and then he's got a wheelbarrow full of chips, and then he's got his hat hooked up with a cord to a keg of Dr. Pepper, and he's just sitting and he's crying the whole time. He's just crying the whole time.
well, he's definitely crying today
I'm a
because he
pepper.
went through hell over the past few months. Just the laughing stock of the Trump campaign, even in comparison to Trump. And now he didn't even get it in the end after all that, after totally selling out whatever self-respect. I don't know. Did he have some? If he had some, it's now gone.
After dropping out to spend more time with his family-style meals. The thing is, you know, Mike Pence is going to go on Sarah Palin, Dan Quayle, and now Mike Pence will go on the Mount Rushmore of Republican idiots.
The only difference is that, and one key difference for Pence is that there was an attractiveness to putting him on the ticket, if only because he stays on message. He's not undisciplined. So unlike Dan Quayle and Sarah Palin, who merely when they speak are exposed for their incredible simplicity and their lack of intellectual sophistication, Mike Pence does not play that way. Mike Pence, in fact, looks as if you would cast him as the president if it were a secondary role in a Roland Emmerich movie, right? Like he looks like, oh, that guy could be the president.
He's got the hair.
Whereas, so on Palin and Quayle, on face alone, well, on mouth alone, you knew, oh wow, this is horrendous. Pence at least doesn't have that. It's his record that is the problem.
That
with
is
Mike
horrible.
Pence.
Yes,
it's the things he has said.
He doesn't
even
think
though
that
he says them
smoking
in a
is bad for you. He doesn't
because
believe
some
in
people have
climate change.
smoked and are still alive.
Yeah.
That's essentially what he said.
He wants women who have abortions to pay for the funerals for the fetuses. That's a nice guy.
He said that?
Yeah. To be fair, Trump already said there should be punishment. That's one form of punishment you could add.
Asked in 2007, I
said
believe, when he was in Congress, are you prepared to shut down the government to defund Planned Parenthood? Of course I am, was his response to that question.
Wow.
Yes, this is the moderating influence as Trump pivots for the general election.
Right.
But we do want to show you a little bit of video because I don't want to get off of too much how much of an apparent mess this entire situation was. Trump, the guy who's supposed to be smarter. We got to be smart. This is him last night with Greta Van Susteren talking about the possibility of Pence.
All right, well, let me just jump to the politically correct. You know, the rumors out there, I'm sure. I know you've denied that you've made a decision or you haven't released it, but Governor Mike Pence, who is, the media is reporting that they think is your vice presidential nominee. He said back in December, calls to ban Muslims from entering the United States are offensive and unconstitutional. In light of the remarks you've made about a temporary ban, how would you reconcile that?
Well, you know, I'm not going to agree with anybody. I mean, I've interviewed many people would like to have this position. You see what's happening with the polls. The polls are very strong and getting up and stronger every day. And a lot of people want this position. A lot of people that you don't know about want this position. And there's nobody that agrees with me fully on anything. There's always going to be somebody where they disagree on a border or they disagree on a Muslim ban or they disagree on something. So I fully understand that. Probably less with Mike than most, but I haven't made my final decision. I mean, I've got 3 people that are fantastic. I think Newt is a fantastic person. I think Chris Christie is a fantastic person, been a friend of mine for 15 years, just a fantastic person. And there's Mike, and Mike has done a great job as governor of Indiana. You look at the numbers, and it's been a great, you know, he's done really a fantastic job. So, you know, but I haven't made a final decision.
So, look, here's the thing, though. Regardless of what was going through Trump's mind during that, he had already announced much earlier that day, I will announce who it is tomorrow. This is before the pushback. He's saying it's less than 1 day to go. I haven't decided.
Right. I haven't
How does
decided.
that not look horrible that you don't know who you want? Why are you fucking announcing it if you're not sure? You're saying, oh, well, it could go one way, it could go the other way. I'll just pick one because the deadline that I set up is coming. How about you think about it, choose, and then set an announcement time?
Yeah,
This is the guy that's supposed to bring a new business-like approach to running the government, who's not one of those stupid chuckleheads who's making this mess in government, doesn't know how to lead. He's choosing because the essay is due at 9.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And he's chosen a incredibly conservative former member of Congress, governor. Of course, we've already forgotten, but in 2015, the most aggressively anti-LGBTQ legislation that has ever been put forth in this country. It took him, a significant amount of time and enormous pressure from even inside the Republican Party to make that change. But the New York Times ran this real quick. They ran a, who is Mike Pence today, right? Age 57, experience, Indiana governor, 6-term congressman. Family, Jimmy married in 1985, 3 kids. Education, graduated from Hanover College, has a law degree from Indiana University.
No kidding.
Fun fact they include here. Fun fact, the Pences love animals. Everybody loves animals!
At least some animals.
I hate
not all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, the Pences bathe regularly. The Pences are big believers in soap.
Yeah. In response, Christie tweeted, I also love animal crackers.